As America is bracing for a possible indictment of its former president, the international banking system is collapsing. And how's your Monday going? CNN Business reports as of this morning, UBS is buying Credit Suisse in a bid to halt the banking crisis. Now, I don't know a whole lot about what that means other than we've had several major bank failures in the past couple of weeks, some of the biggest in history. They're continuing still today. And Credit Suisse is one of the biggest in the world, and it's about to go under. So it is apparently going to be bought out by UBS. I do not believe that one bank buying another stops the problem. And I have this long thread, a Twitter post explaining why we are going to enter hyperinflation and, advocating for Bitcoin. Ah, yes, Bitcoin. The story I just tweeted about in a story I love to tell. I thought about putting my $5,000 savings into Bitcoin in 2011 when it was at 70 cents per Bitcoin. If I did, and then I never touched that, I'd have about $200 million today, at its peak around $500 billion. But I mean, the reality is, even if I did buy the Bitcoin, I probably would have spent it when Bitcoin hit $1,000, and I would have been like, wow, I'm rich, $500,000, almost $1 million or whatever. So hindsight is 2020, but here's the point. That $5,000 in savings that I had, I've never spent it. Never. Still to this day, I have never spent it. Isn't that crazy? The buying power of that money that I was holding on to in USD because I was worried about a rainy day, I never spent. Nope. But if I had just bought the Bitcoin, I could be on my own private island somewhere. Well, again, hindsight is 2020. But the reason I bring this up is not to talk about the lamenting of a failure to invest properly, because truth be told, I could have invested a lot of money into, say, Square, for instance, the payment processing company. I put like $1,000 in that a while ago, and really great investment. But $1,000 turns into like 3,000, and it's like, sure, whatever. I could have put way more money in that, and I'd also be very, very happy. So I'm not going to cry about it. My point is just this. US dollars are garbage. That $5,000 I never spent, its buying power has dropped dramatically compared to Bitcoin. Now, I get it. Bitcoin's a new tech or whatever. But here's the point, ultimately. The banking system is collapsing. The dollar is garbage. And this Ponzi scheme of financial system makes literally no sense and is about to go belly up. Now, I get it. This is the news. UBS is buying Credit Suisse. I'm sure a lot of you are probably like, I don't know, whatever. Well, we got more specific news from the Daily Mail. First Republic shares crash 37% in pre-market trading after credit rating is cut again, despite $30 billion rescue package from 11 major banks as global markets jitter in wake of UBS buying Credit Suisse. So the point is just this, my friends. Even with this major bailout, it ain't working. First Republic is still going down. So what does that mean for you? Well, I guess it means that the whole thing was a big scam. The market is crumbling. First Republic is now down around 18%, so it went up a little bit. Doubts persist about its rescue plan, and confidence is everything. One of the reasons all these pundits come out on TV during financial crises and say everything's better than ever, go buy, is because of the self-fulfilling prophecy of the Ponzi scheme government. See, the system works because you have faith the system works. If you believe the money has value, then the money has value. That's what they're banking on. So if all of a sudden everyone believes it's worthless, the economy ceases to function. It's quite imaginary and based on the confidence of people, which is really kind of funny. People have confidence in gold, right? And the problem is they can't print gold. So they decide to print paper dollars. And then, because there's some random person seemingly with control of this, confidence can be shattered. I don't know if there's an easy system to build up confidence in a global economy. Maybe Bitcoin's it, I'm not sure. Bitcoin's through the roof. But it seems to be coming, and it seems to be getting worse. I have this tweet from Balaji on Twitter. Balaji is a Bitcoin guy, nearly 1 million followers, and he sees this tweet from James Medlock. Medlock says, I'll bet anyone $1 million that the U.S. does not enter hyperinflation. All right, first, I might be interested in that bet, to be completely honest, because I don't think I'd lose the money. But we got to settle some definitions first. What do you mean by hyperinflation? I mean, if we're talking about the price of eggs going up to $6 from $1.80 a couple years ago, is that not hyperinflation? Oh, no, he's going to say, no, I mean that one day it's 6, the next day it's 12, and a day later it's 50. And it's like, okay, you can define it however you want if you want to avoid paying the $1 million. But Balaji is a braver man than I, and he says, I will take that bet. You buy one Bitcoin, I will send $1 million USD. This is around 40 to 1 odds, as one Bitcoin is worth $26,000. Actually, right now, it's worth around $28,000 because it went up. The term is 90 days. Let me pull this up. All we need is a mutually agreed custodian who will still be there to settle this in the event of a digital dollar devaluation. If someone knows how to do this with a smart contract, we can do it on chain. So I can send USDC, it's digital currency. If you won't do that, name a custodian. Balaji, here's the problem. The problem is, what's the definition of hyperinflation? Now, I know a lot of people are not big into crypto and they don't know a lot about it, or they don't like it. They think it's bad. That's fine. My point is simply this. The bet is on. The dollar is tanking. The banks are crumbling. And this means you are going to have a hard time buying things with your dollars. And that's already the case. Hence the story I just told. It's not about the Bitcoin. Everybody laments not buying Bitcoin when it was worth a penny. Duh. Because its value skyrocketed so immensely in the past decade. In your lifetime, if you made that $1,000 purchase, you could be a millionaire. Granted, if you bought into Bitcoin when it first came out, you'd be a billionaire. Isn't that crazy? That if I put all that money in Bitcoin when it was at 20 cents and I never touched it, I'd have like $1 billion. Man, what do you do with all that money? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? The point isn't the Bitcoin. The point is that the dollar has become increasingly worth less. I'm not going to say worthless because dollars still get you something, but worth less. Here's the extended statement from Balaji, who goes through in great detail what we're experiencing with the banks with sources. Yo, you ready for this one? Because I hope y'all have gotten prepared. How many chickens do you own yet? Okay. Balaji says, just as in 2008, the bankers lied. This time, the central bankers, the banks, and the bank regulators have lied to all dollar holders and depositors. This isn't your typical fractional reserve situation. The problem is that there isn't enough in the banks on a mark-to-market basis to cover withdrawals. They knew this through all of last year and communicated it internally in their coded language. It's obvious from the graphs, see below. The central banks, the banks, and the banking regulators all knew a huge crash was coming. The phrase is, quote, unrealized losses. What the does that mean? Unrealized losses. Okay. Well, I'll put it this way. If I buy a car and that's $10,000 in cash, then the car stops working. The car now drops in value to $1,000. But it's just sitting in my garage. I don't touch it. I don't think about it. I have an unrealized loss of $9,000. Sooner or later, the bill comes due. I'll need to drive the car or sell it, but I don't have that value anymore. It's gone. They never notified you, he says, the depositor. Instead, the regulators allowed banks to hide their literal insolvency in footnotes until one guy figured it out. It's Uncle Sam Bankman-Fried. Just like SBF used your deposits to buy ish coins, using accounting tricks to fool himself and others into using the money, so too did the banks. They all used the deposits to buy the ultimate ish coin. I'm trying to avoid swearing, but basically saying like trash crypto. Long dated US treasuries, and they all got wrecked at the same time. In the same way, because they bought the same asset from the same vendor who devalued it at the same time, the Fed, the Federal Reserve. Specifically, as New York Times admitted, banks binged on enormous amounts of treasuries and other long-term bonds in 2021 when the flood of printed money cut off their typical demand for loans, and because they thought the Fed would keep interest rates low forever. The idea, super simply put, I'm not a financial guy. You buy treasury bonds 2%. That means in X many years, you'll see a 2% return. Interest rates will stay low. So your bonds are beating inflation. It sounds good. Now, oversimplified, and I may be getting this one totally wrong because I was listening to a space from some financial guys, and basically what they were saying was, now what's happening is these treasury investments have a lower return than inflation. So they're basically losing tons of money. And that's collapse. That's what it is. Here we go. He says they had a good reason to believe this. Powell said he got patient on rate hikes as late as November 3rd, 2021. Then he got renominated on November 22nd, 2021, and hiked rates much faster than anyone had expected, which even Yellen and the FDIC admitted caused the current banking crisis. Why did Powell delay? Probably for political reasons. Presidents don't like rate hikes, especially running into the election year of 2022. And Powell thought he could wait and just be like Paul Volcker, who was firm and then defeated inflation. But the world isn't an 80s rerun. Hiking from 10 years of near zero interest rates in the 2010s was a surprise attack on every dollar holder. Economics isn't politics. The kind of insane flip-flops you see in politics don't work when there are actual contracts involved. So anyone who bet on long-term treasuries got killed in 2021. And now everyone who bets on short-term treasuries is going to get killed in 2023. The absolute worst place you can be is to have large amounts of assets locked up in 3-month treasury bills. The 5% interest rate offered by big banks is a trap. Most fiat bank accounts are now a trap for those countries whose central bankers followed the Fed. He says, check my references. I provided quite a few. If you trust U.S. bankers and U.S. media, ignore me. Otherwise, buy Bitcoin and get your coins off exchanges. Woo! I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if you should buy Bitcoin. I only tell you this. I bought Bitcoin a while ago. Learned my lesson. Let's play another story for you, my friends. You're not supposed to talk about this stuff, but I will. In 2011, I did not buy Bitcoin. I did, however, receive some from friends. And early in the days, there was this thing called the Bitcoin faucet where you got like 0.05 Bitcoin for free. Could you imagine? Woo! What is that today? Like $1,000? I think that's about $1,000 for free. If you got it 10 years ago, $1,000, man. Anyway, then a few years later, like a year or two later, I received maybe like 20 Bitcoin from fans who had been following me and wanted to donate. However, around this time, I think it was like $5. So I can't remember exactly when the Bitcoin was sent to me, but I had like 20 Bitcoin when it was at $5. And I was so excited. I sold it immediately for about $400. And I was like, guys, I just paid the rent. That's amazing. When I received the Bitcoin, it was only like $50 and now it's 200. I'm out because who knows when it's going to fall. If only I knew. Well, I learned my lesson. And then around 2015 or 16, I actually bought some Bitcoin. And oh boy, am I very, very happy that I did. Now, I am by no means anywhere near a Bitcoin millionaire or anything like that. I would say that I probably didn't learn my lesson good enough, but I bought some and I have some savings and it's valuable and going up in value. So I'm excited that's the case. Granted, if the US dollar collapses, then this whole company, this business collapses. So become a member at timcast.com, I guess. Although I suppose it won't really matter in the end if your dollars you send me don't do anything for you. Don't do anything for me to pay my employees. But I won't starve to death. So here's what I think may be happening. I don't know if Bitcoin is the right bet. What I do know is that this guy has got a bunch of graphs. Look at this one. Federal Reserve weekly remittances to Treasury. Woo! Something happened in 2023 and it went sharply negative. I got no idea what that means. I mean, unrealized gains, losses on investment securities. Woo! That looks really bad. Maybe this guy is just trying to buy Bitcoin. Maybe he wants you to buy it because he told you to, so the price skyrockets and it's good for him. Or maybe he's just honest and he's telling the truth and he's speaking out against the lies. The problem is the corporate press and the establishment lied in 2008, so why would anyone believe them? Me? I don't. So maybe I should have bought more Bitcoin a while ago. Maybe after it fell down to like 19K from 65 or whatever it was at, I should have bought a bunch. Well, it's not about buying one. It's about buying fractions of. You can put $1,000 into it. And if it triples in value, now you got 3. But this means another thing. Bitcoin may not be improving in buying power. It may not. I mean, it is. Look, obviously, if you put $5,000 in and you had 200 million today, that's a dramatic increase in the buying power of the Bitcoin. But it's also the declining buying power of the U.S. dollar. If the U.S. dollar, if it used to be $1.80 for a carton of eggs, now it's $6, that's a failure of its buying power. Because of that, you will see Bitcoin go up the same as eggs will go up. The value of the dollar is going down, so the dollar against everything else becomes more expensive. He goes on to say, here are the remaining references as Twitter has a limit. I am moving $2 million into USDC for the bet. I will do it with Medlock and for one other person. Sufficient to prove the point. See my next tweet. Everyone else should just go buy Bitcoin, as it'll be much cheaper for you than locking one up for 90 days. Full pause real quick. I am not advising that. I don't know what you should do. I have Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin. You should talk to someone who knows about finance, because I certainly don't. Terms of the bet. Ideally, someone can set up a smart contract where Bitcoin is worth more than 1 million in 90 days. Then if I win, then I win. If it's worth less than $1 million in 90 days, then the counterparty gets the $1 million in USD. Holy crap. What? I didn't think he was necessarily suggesting that. That's what he's suggesting? He's suggesting outright that Bitcoin will be worth more than $1 million in 90 days. I don't think so. And I'm the guy who's been saying for years that a Bitcoin will hit $1 million. I genuinely believe it. I have always believed it. I believe Bitcoin is headed to over $1 million. I don't know about 90 days, though. That's one of the reasons I bought. But if that's the case, maybe I should invest. If it's worth less than $1 million in 90 days, then he's going to give $1 million. So are you kidding me? I might take that bet. Wow. Hyperbitcoinization. He says, we have to define hyperinflation in BTC versus USD. Okay, fair point. That's what I was saying earlier. Because all other fiat currencies can and will be inflated away. That's hyperbitcoinization. This is the moment that the world redenominates on Bitcoin as digital gold, returning to a model much like before the 20th century. What's going to happen is that individuals, then firms, then large funds will buy Bitcoin. Then sovereigns like El Salvador is incredible, by the way. Read their story. Shout out to Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert. And tiny crypto-friendly countries. The big move will be when a U.S. state like Florida or Texas, or a normal country like Estonia, Singapore, Saudi, Hungary, or UAE buys Bitcoin. And then now Narendra Modi tells India's central bank to buy Bitcoin as a hedge. It's over. Why will it be so fast? When hyperinflation happens fast. We've seen digital pandemics, digital riots, and digital bank runs. Everything will happen very fast once people check what I'm saying and see the Federal Reserve has lied about how much money there is in the banks. All dollar holders get destroyed. The thing is, people are still tuned to an analog world where things get gradually worse rather than all at once. This is absolutely correct. I agree with that point. Everybody lives in this world where they think things take time. They do. But with the spread of information, things can snap and happen overnight. It used to be, and I talk about this a lot, that when we declared independence here in these United States, we wrote up a letter, sent it to the Crown, took 3 months to get there. He reads and goes, they're what? They're independent. Send troops. After a month of preparations and a return letter, a 3-month trip on the high seas, they come back and say, here's our response. 6 months went by. Today, you send a text message, I declare independence, they respond instantly. He says this. People are still tuned to an analog world. It's still ones, but there isn't much forewarning for a digital event. It's a 1 and then a 0, just like the bank runs. There are, however, 2 sources of forewarning. First is the chart of the long-term depreciation of USD versus BTC from less than $1, blah, blah, blah. Much of the smart money has been voting against the dollar. This tweet is the second forewarning. It'll be ignored and mocked by people who still trust the U.S. establishment even after the last few years, who can't imagine that the U.S. banks and media could be lying to them to this extent. But they are, just as they did in 2008. And over the last 10 years, the digital devaluation of the dollar is coming. and it's going to be intense. Look at this. Wow. He posts an image of the dollar against Bitcoin down 98.76%. Woo! Okay. Here's the thing. My buddy, Balaji, I believe you. I think you are being completely honest in your assessment. I think you've done the research. I want to take your bet. Hands down. I want to take your bet. You know why? Bro, it's not about proving you're right or wrong. It's about you gave me too sweet of odds. Like, you're telling me to risk $26,000 and then wait 3 months and I could have $1 million? I assume you are correct and you may be right. So what I'll do is I'll buy 2 Bitcoin, save one for myself, wager the other one. And my worst case scenario is the $52,000 that I spend right now, I end up with $1 million because you're suggesting a Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million. I am okay with that wager. To be honest, I don't know if I can put $26,000 on a roulette wheel. You know what I mean? But I suppose 40-1 odds. And I don't know if I believe Bitcoin will hit $1 million in 90 days. Woo! Maybe one of you guys wants to take up that bet. I might do it. Maybe I got to talk to this guy because I think maybe we do it as a stunt because the risk to me would be so incredibly low. But we make a tracker. We'll do a Bitcoin price tracker. We'll do a wager and we'll be like, who's going to get the cash in the end? And I'll say it outright, like, I actually don't think he's wrong, but I think his timeline is way too fast. I think the banking crisis is here. I'm showing you the stories and I'm saying the media lies nonstop. But to come out and be like, in 3 months, 1 Bitcoin's $1 million? Yo, I don't know if I would make that wager. That being said, I learned my lesson on Bitcoin, man. And he makes a really, really good point. When the governments say hedge with Bitcoin, it will shatter $1 million. And maybe that happens soon. Now, I personally have some, but I don't got that much. Maybe I should start buying more. Maybe I'll finally learn my lesson. We'll see. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.